Thanks, Karen.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's Planning and Control meeting. To go any further, could I ask all of you, please, and those members of the public who are here to either switch your mobile phones off or put them on silent. Once you've done that, we can proceed to the main body. Do we have any apologies from anybody?
I have no apologies, Chair. Thank
Okay,
you.
late items to be introduced. There are none to be introduced by me. Declarations of interest? No?
Sorry, Chair, only to say that one of the items is in my ward, but I always let you know that.
Right, okay, yes, well, thank you for letting us know, but it's not of concern, as it were, in terms of the procedures. Right, we can go on to minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of January 2021.
Who was printed, Chair?
Thank you. Seconder?
Seconded.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 5, which is the minutes of the meeting of the Conservation Area Advisory Committee held on the 3rd of December 2020.
Noted.
Noted.
Thank you. Item number 6, appeals decisions, and to tell us about this will be Mr. Woodhead.
Thank you, Chair. It's Ian Woodhead, Development Control Manager. Just want to report tonight, Chair. It's a dismissal against a Part 16 prior notification for telecoms development on Ford Street in the city centre, and we refused permission on the grounds it's in the conservation area and a highly intrusive piece of kit. The inspector agreed, which was good. And just one thing to note on this that I think is just worth pointing out for members' attention is that we get lots of telecoms applications, and government advice at the start of COVID was that these should be given high priority, and we endeavour to give pre-application advice wherever possible. In this case, Isabel received a pre-app request on the 23rd of April. She provided a response the day after on the 24th, the same day as the application was received. So they didn't take heed of any pre-app advice, where we were very cautious and quite negative about it, and we duly refused prior notification approval. They lost the appeal, and if you want to read the report, it's really quite a decisive decision from the inspector. So happy to take any questions on that, Chair. Many thanks.
Thank you, Ian. Members, anybody want to question Ian?
May I ask on that, please, Chair?
You certainly can, Lucy.
I understand that there's been, as a local member, we've had information that they would like to put a presumably similar installation in the middle of Littleover Village. I responded back to say that I didn't think it was an appropriate location because of its high footfall and historic area and so on, and suggested other places. Do you think this will support pushing that elsewhere, in which case could we draw to the applicant's attention that this has been refused?
I'm sure Mr. Woodhead will...
or upheld, depending how you like it.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Kerr. I mean, it's each case on its merits, of course, and the Ford Street decision was in a highly sensitive location in a conservation area as a designated heritage asset and then surrounded by a list of buildings. But one thing that the inspector did note in that case was that they didn't submit lots of alternative sites that they looked at and disregarded. So clearly, in most cases, we will look at the sensitivities of a location, because with a Part 16 prior notification, we're just looking at siting and external appearance, and we'll also look at the alternatives that they've disregarded. So we'll look at them very carefully, Councillor Kerr, and they are the current 5G kit is bigger than the previous. They're generally in the region of about 20 metres in height from ground level with wraparound cabinets. So we do take very careful attention to them. So if you want to alert us and be involved in this, then just drop the case officer a note about it, and we'll look at it very carefully as we do anyway. Okay.
Thank you. Ian. I hope you're happy with that, Lucy. Anybody else? No? In that case, I believe it's you again, then, Ian, to tell us about the Development Control Performance quarter, October to December.
Yeah, thanks again, Chair. Nothing really to add apart from at part 10.1 in the report, the health and safety bit. I think one thing that does need adding to that I've not added to is the ongoing issue of all my colleagues working remotely. It's been a long time now, and they continue to deliver and dispatch applications in difficult circumstances. We're working at home, of course. A lot of the team have got childcare responsibilities, other caring responsibilities, and you know the lockdown situation has gone on for some time. So I'm very pleased with the performance anyway. But in the context of COVID, I'd like to thank all my colleagues for their collective positivity over a difficult period. And I'll take any questions, Chair. Many thanks.
Thank you. I'm sure, I'm not alone in thanking you, the staff and everybody else for trying to do your very best in this, difficult and unprecedented circumstances. And we are all very, very appreciative of that. Anybody wish to say anything to Ian apart from go away? No? Okay. If that's the case, let's move on to the main body. Then the applications to be considered tonight. There is going to be a slight change in the order. We're going to take the number 3 first, which is number 5, David's Close, pages 114 to 120. That's because Councillor Ingle wishes to speak on it, and we're all in a hurry to get rid of him. So I believe that's you to tell us about it, Ian.
Yeah, many thanks, Chair. It's Ian Woodhead again, Development Control Manager. Just one housekeeping item to report. Was the informative note circulated yesterday, which we'll attach to any decision notice. And in terms of the main report, Chair, I have nothing to add to the report, and we'll hand over to Councillor Ingle to have his say. Many thanks.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Ingle, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much indeed, Chair. David's Close is a lovely little cul-de-sac in Chellaston. As you can see from the pictures in front of you, they're all small 2-3 bedroom bungalows. You can see this picture here, they're all small with older people living in them. This extension to this property is absolutely enormous. It's making it from a 3-bedroom property to a 5-bedroom property. When you look at this, the bedrooms coming off kitchens, it's just a bit bizarre. So massing has got to be a problem there. Look how much more space it takes up as the other. Parking. Where are all these cars going to go? It's almost an unlimited amount of people that can live in this very small home. So where are all those cars going to go? I think it's an overdevelopment. We've got this lovely small place, and we're going to put a massive house on it. Look at this, how much it increases by. It nearly doubles in size. It leaves you with an 8-foot rear garden. Really? Are we sure that's right? Most of all, it's out of keeping with the other properties in the cul-de-sac. It's a lovely place to live. It's a very quiet street with lots of old people living there. They don't need this. I wouldn't want to live next door to that, would you? It's just going to be a total blot on the landscape, and I would urge all councillors to reject this, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ingle. Members of the committee, would anybody like to comment on that? No? Would somebody like to move it to vote then?
I think Councillor McChrystal wants to speak, Chair.
Councillor McChrystal's just put his name up, and we got Paul Bettany after that. So Councillor McChrystal first, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, as I'm switching between screens, so a little bit delayed. It's a tough one, this, as far as I'm concerned. Very difficult. I think the objections that we've had have been a little bit misguided. I think the first objection was the loss of an ornamental tree, which obviously hasn't got a TPO on it. And I understand that objection's now been been updated, and we've had a revised objection. I was just looking for some clarity from council officers on two parts to this application. One would be the homeowners, the applicant's fallback position, and the second part on the HMO, and whether we've got any grounds to realistically to object on it on that basis. Thank you.
Ian?
Thank you, Chair. It's Ian Woodhead again. The fallback position is spelt out in the report, Chair. Yeah, it's what the applicant does have are options under the prior notification regime. We could do actually something bigger under the prior notification regime. So there is a real fallback position. That was something that was introduced in the days of Eric Pickles as the Secretary of State to speed up development and give householders greater flexibility. In this case, the agent has elected to apply for full permission, but effectively there is a fallback position on the prior notification route, so he could do something larger in footprint. And in terms of the HMO position, there's no suggestion that that's their intention. So the informative note was just a cautionary note to go on the notice to just alert the agent and the applicant. But I've confirmed with the case officer today that there's no suggestion of that. So that's it, Chair. Back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor McChrystal, unfortunately, we can only look at what's before us and then not sort of think that what might happen in the future. But as Ian said, we'll look at it as it is. And if for some reason they want to try a HMO, then we can certainly look at it when it comes before us. Yeah. Councillor Bettany.
Thank you, Chair. We seem to be getting more and more of these properties that want to expand and get bigger, well beyond the surrounding properties. And to be honest, they're causing us nothing but headaches, especially in my particular ward, to be honest. And they sit uneasy with me, I'll be honest with you. And I don't think I'm going to vote for this, I'll be absolutely honest. Thanks. That's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Unfortunately, I mean, it's you have to look at the times, and there's more and more sort of children stopping at home, not moving out, etc. And extensions, well, they've always been there, but nowadays people are more likely to do it simply because of economics. And we have to look at each and every one as it comes, and not judge all of them as sort of carte blanche. Anybody else? Would somebody like to move it to the vote?
Yeah, no, please, Chair. If I can just comment, I just put any comments to comment after Councillor Bettany, if that's okay, Chair. It's Councillor McChrystal.
Okay, yes, go on, Ross.
Yeah, just to come back to what Mr. Woodhead has said, so I get that. So my understanding is if this was to be refused, the applicant could come back and effectively build something bigger. If I've understood Mr. Woodhead correctly.
Ian?
Yeah, yes, Councillor McChrystal. Effectively, the prior notification regime is a slightly watered down version of the application process. So they would have 42 days to notify us with a very basic plan illustrating dimensions, and those dimensions can be bigger than what they've shown on the in this application. So yeah, and what I would say about this proposal, in any case, it's 2.5 meters high with a flat roof. You could have a wall along both boundaries up to 2 meters in height, and we don't have a policy that has prescriptive garden space standards, things like that. And the applicant's agent during the life of the application did respond to the objections and said basically the garden's fine for his client's requirements, and he's called it a gin and tonic garden. So that's what they want, and we'll have to determine it accordingly.
So I just guess one other question. I guess we haven't got a leg to stand on when it comes to the ornamental tree in the garden either. Then
no, Councillor McChrystal. That was a non-native species that was removed, as you said before. No TPO on it, and people can plant and remove trees that are unprotected as they see fit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Steve Assel.
Chair, are you missing me?
Yes, it's Councillor Kerr first, Chair.
Oh, sorry, you know what, I couldn't get this on the screen. Yeah, Councillor Kerr.
Thank you. I just wanted to sort of look at when we saw the plan up of the location of the property. Most of the properties nearby also seem to have been extended, which is interesting. And they're not as large an extension, and they are all to the rear, or almost all to the rear. One I think is to the side. So it suggests that it's a nice close that people move into and don't want to move out of. So in some ways it seems to be that it's actually not in keeping with what else is happening in the area. But I'm concerned that we might also lose the front garden to more hard standing, and I just wondered what the situation was regarding runoff and conditioning of that. Is that something we could put an informative note on, please?
Hello. Yeah, not particularly, Councillor Kerr, because effectively that's governed by another part of the PD requirements. So if they built something or attempted to install a hard standing of over 5 square metres without any permeable surface or runoff on site, then it would require permission. But they've not shown anything anyway, but they would need to be mindful of that PD requirement, which came into effect some years ago because people, predominantly in the southeast of England, were hard surfacing all the front gardens to park cars, and it was creating havoc everywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I mean, these days, if you have parking space at the front of your house, you're very lucky. You'd be silly to try and get rid of it. But is there? Sorry, it is now Steve Hassel.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Kerr's really just covered what I was going to say. If you could bring up the aerial plan again, if that's possible. It just seems to me that there's a precedent for quite large extensions in that area. I mean, the property immediately behind it seems quite large and in length. The one to the left of that again is quite large. The one to the right, immediately to the right on the before the bend, that's obviously had some quite major extension work done. So I presume there's quite. Do we know if there's been permission given for these sorts of extensions and things in that area just to act as precedent? Thank you.
Just to clarify, Councillor Hassel, the big bungalow you're talking about on the right is actually a new build. That was a piece of empty land.
Well, okay. Yes, thank you, Councillor Ingalls. You should know that we can't allow you to speak again once you've presented the case. But look, from the aerial point of view, you can see that it's not sort of uniform in terms of the buildings. Is different roofs, different sizes, different extensions, side extension, rear extension. So it is obviously an area that's been or close has been having developments, extensions. But just going back to what Steve was asking, Ian, can you just clarify that we have allowed extensions in this close before?
Past, Chair, I think a lot of them probably permitted development extensions. When you look along the row, there are, as you mentioned, small conservatories, garages in back gardens. The permitted development criteria have changed over the years, and it's gradually increased as James has shown the permitted development line and the prior notification line on screen to show you what footprints could potentially be included. And there are other bits of development in the street, dormers in the roof space, front and rear. So there's been incremental development over the years, which is not uncommon. So yeah, as Councillor Hassel's pointed out, there's lots gone off in the street, but it's all relatively modest and low level. So yeah, I've got nothing to be concerned about. But yeah, if we were to refuse permission, I think we would be, as my friend Johnny Stewart used to say, stranded at appeal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. I can't see anybody else up there, so if nobody else wants to speak, would somebody like to move it to the vote?
I'll move it, Chair. Councillor Hassel.
Yeah. Seconder?
I'm happy to second.
Yeah, second. Oh,
thank you.
Sorry, yeah.
Is it Stephen doing the voting?
I don't think we have Councillor Anderson with us this evening, so I'll start with Councillor Bettany, please.
I confirm my presence, and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote against it.
Against. To clarify, we are voting with the officer's recommendations.
Yeah, I'm voting against.
Okay.
Against. Thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Kerr, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Carr, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate and I vote in favour.
In favour, Councillor Carr. Thank you. Councillor Hassel, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate and I vote in favour of the officer recommendation.
In favour, Councillor Hassel. Thank you. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I confirm my presence and seeing the presentation, I vote in favour.
In favour, Councillor Nawaz. Thank you. Councillor McChrystal, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate and I abstain.
You abstain, Councillor McChrystal. Thank you. Councillor Pearce, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate and I vote in favour of the officer's recommendations.
In favour, Councillor Pearce. Thank you. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate and I vote in favour of the officer's recommendation.
In favour, Councillor Pegg. Thank you. Councillor West, please.
Hi, Stephen. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour of the officer's recommendation.
In favour, Councillor West. Thank you. And finally, yourself, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the officer's recommendation.
In favour. Thanks very much, Chair. So that's 8 in favour, 1 against and 1 abstention.
Thank you. That's granted. Right, we go back to the the order as it was.
Thank you, Chair. It was nice to see you all.
Okay, thank you. We go to the application land northwest of Mansfield Road, Bredsall Hilltop, pages 1 to 12. And to tell us about this, I believe, is Sarah Claxton. I don't want to get the Sarahs mixed up.
Yes, that's right, Chair. It is Sarah Claxton to say about this one, a development control team leader. I've got a few housekeeping items for members. We've received one further comment since the report was printed from Bredsall Parish Council, giving comments on the conditions, saying that they wish the condition to be removed at section 106 should be paid to upgrade the existing footpath. And they also say that they support the retention of the tree protection measures. There's also a typo in 7.2, last paragraph, which I need to highlight for members. This is a sentence where it says footpath is a public right of way which has not been closed, and it should say does not form any part of the proposals. We've also received highway officer comments this morning. He's been a summary. He basically says the developers offered the cycle path in connection to the greenway, which appears they can't deliver. It was only ever a connection to the boundary of the site, and it's clear that the path connects to the greenway plan. As you're aware, all other alternatives have been explored and rejected. Alternative cycle route via the A608 or minor roads within the Oakwood estate exist. The main body of the report, this is a section 73 variation of condition application relating to 2 conditions on the outline permission for development of 230 dwellings and associated infrastructure on land north of Mansfield Road in Bredsall Hilltop. The outline permission was granted in 2016 with all matters reserved except for access. Condition 4 is a pre-commencement condition for tree protection to agree and implement protection measures for trees and hedgerows on and around the site. An amendment for the timing of this condition is sought to agree the tree protection which is currently in place and to retain them for the duration of the construction works. Condition 20 requires a new cycle and footpath route to be formed to link the development with the Great Northern Greenway, which lies to the west of the site, which is shown in yellow on the plan. The removal of the condition is sought for the reason that the new route to the Greenway cannot feasibly be implemented from the development site. In terms of condition 4, the applicants provided tree protection details and photos to show the fencing, and on the basis of the information that's been submitted, the Council's tree officer raises no objections to the variation of this condition. In terms of condition 20, the condition was attached to the outline permission to provide a new off-road link from the development to the Greenway to improve connectivity with the strategic cycle route. At the time, the applicant, Radley Homes, suggested a link would be possible from the northwest corner of the site. This is because the red line plan showed the location of the drainage attenuation pond for the site scheme to be north of the site within Erewash district, and that's obviously shown on your plan with the red hatched area was intended to be the pond. When the Reserve Matters submission came in 2017, a different developer was on board, this time Redrow Homes, and they relocated the pond to the northwest corner of the development site. As you can see on the plan, it's edged in blue. The reasons for this change in the drainage permission are really related to land ownership. Redrow Homes have confirmed that they don't have ownership for any land north of the development site, so the pond had to be sited in the position where it is now. Where the pond is now sited, it sits along the shared boundary with the Greenway, and for reasons of public safety, the pond isn't a suitable location to install a footpath or cycle route because of its proximity to the boundary. And as you can see on the plan, it does share a boundary with the Greenway, which is just in that sort of northwest corner of the plan. There are also physical constraints, which mean that the cycle and footpath link on the Greenway is not practical to deliver from the site. And this plan submitted by the applicant sort of illustrates this in the photos, because it shows that there is a very steep slope from the top of the site down to the cycle route, which is also a woodland covered by a TPO. And as you can imagine, it would involve substantial engineering works and loss of significant trees to form a suitable enough ramped, wide enough accessible path to achieve the cycle requirements of our highways team. Colleagues in highways and transportation have considered this to be unfeasible and do not recommend this as an appropriate route for such a link. The application to remove the condition has attracted a large number of third-party objections, including local ward members. There's also been some concern raised in those objections that the existing public footpath, which runs through the development site from the Greenway to the Greenway and Vedsall Village, will be closed. But this is not the case, and the developer has upgraded the path which goes through their site to a cycle and pedestrian route. There are also existing links to the Greenway from Mansfield Road, both to the north and the south of the development site, which provide current connectivity for new residents of the development. The applicants had numerous discussions with our highways officers and rights of way officer during the life of the application to try and find a suitable alternative to avoid removal of the condition. However, for reasons set out above, this is not considered now achievable or practical. So the conclusion, regrettably, that we've had to come to is that the condition can't be implemented as it's required, and therefore we should allow its removal. So the proposal is recommended for approval to vary both conditions as proposed, subject to the recommended set of outline conditions. And you have one speaker, a public speaker, I believe. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. I believe we have Mrs. Thatcher. So if you would like to speak, Mrs. Thatcher. Do we have Mrs. Thatcher on the...
It's not Mrs. Thatcher. She's busy. It's Mr. Thatcher.
Well, it's all right. We're in an accommodating mood. We'll let you get on with it.
Okay.
Yes, carry on.
Yep. I'm speaking on behalf of Derby Cycling Group. The Great Northern Greenway is an excellent traffic-free path for walking and cycling. From the Greenway, it's possible to continue to Racecourse Park and onto the Riverside Path into the centre of Derby to Elverston or Chellaston. It opens up the possibility of active travel for commuting, shopping and socialising. By contrast, Mansfield Road is a narrow, busy road which does not feel safe for cycling and would definitely act as a deterrent to active travel. The only other access points to the Greenway for cyclists require you to use Mansfield Road to gain access. It would be a travesty if 230 households living only a few metres from such a wonderful active travel route were prevented from using it to its full potential. Redrow Homes were aware of the condition to provide a cycleway and footpath route to the Great Northern Greenway since the outline planning approval, but chose not to include it in the reserved matters planning application. No developer would ignore a similar condition for building an access route for motorised vehicles. In their letter from December 2020, Redrow Homes state that they understood Condition 20 was imposed in order that connections to the Greenway could be further explored and details submitted accordingly. If it was fully considered at the time of the Reserved Matters application, the request to remove Condition 20 should have been made then, rather than 3 years later. I do not agree that the developer has fully explored the options for improving the existing footpath or investigated other possible routes for a path to the northeast of the development. Every effort should be made to get agreement from surrounding landowners for Redrow Homes to create a suitable path. On the in July 2020, the Department for Transport published a document called Gear Change, a Bold Vision for Walking and Cycling, in which they had the following to say about the planning of housing developments. We will ensure that all new housing developments are built around making sustainable travel, including cycling and walking, the first choice for journeys. The purpose of the planning system is to contribute to the achievement of sustainable development. We expect sustainable transport issues to be considered from the earliest stages of plan making and development proposals so that opportunities to promote walking and cycling are pursued. This is an ideal opportunity to take a step towards ensuring walking and cycling can be the first choice for residents of this development and must be enforced. Please use this opportunity to retain Condition 20 and insist that the developer use all their construction experience and resources to ensure that they build a walking and cycling link to the Great Northern Greenway which is suitable for all users.
Thank you, Mr. Thatcher. Sarah, would you like to come back on any of that?
Thank you, Chair. In response to that, the developer needs to spend more time looking at the sites. We've spent about 10 months of the application with Redrow and our council's highways and rights of way officers to try and find a suitable solution, because clearly there is an aspiration and a desire for a sustainable route, but because of the constraints which I think I've explained, and because of land ownership issues as well, because there isn't any ownership for either by the City Council or the developer for any land really that's to the north east of the site or to the south of the development site, the options really are very limited, and we have explored those limited options. And unfortunately, we have had to conclude that it isn't possible to provide a new route, and so there are existing routes which may not be as off-road or as be sort of safe. So we have done our best, but you know, we just weren't able to achieve what the condition asked for.
Thank you, Sarah. Members of the committee, I believe, is it Councillor McChrystal first or Councillor Carr?
It's myself, Chair, Councillor McChrystal, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've got a few issues with this. I guess the first issue is, why are we in this position and this situation? The topography of the land hasn't changed. It is what it is since planning was granted. Redrow, DCC planning, a lot of experience, far more experience than us laymen's that are sitting on this committee. You know, surely issues of drainage, you know, would have been considered or should have been considered, and we shouldn't be in this issue, or we shouldn't have this issue as it brought in front of the committee tonight, because sure there's an engineered solution to this, or I'd hope so. I guess really my question is, what happens if we say, as in the committee tonight, and not to preempt what the committee will decide, but what happens if we say no? Clause 20 needs to remain. Thank you, Chair.
Sarah? Would you like to come back on that?
Yes,
sorry.
I'm so sorry. I mean, sure, Stephen Teasdale might be able to advise on the legal side, but I think if members decide that they wish the condition to remain, the options are that we either just let it go, we don't enforce against the condition because we can't agree a acceptable solution to provide the route that's provided, or we would have to enforce against it. So I think, I mean, our view is that we probably would, it wouldn't be expedient to enforce against it, because unless we can find a suitable alternative link but in the future, which isn't currently apparent now.
Mr. Teasdale, would you like to come say anything on from a legal point of view?
Hello, yes. I mean, Sarah's sort of summarised the position. I mean, I can't comment on expediency because I've not looked at the actual details of whether it's achievable or not, but effectively what Sarah said as regards enforcement is correct.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Mike Carr.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think Mr. Thatcher said most of what I was going to say, which is pleasing, and also Mr. McChrystal. I use all of these footpaths in this area very, very regularly. I find it hard to believe that a solution. I'm sure a solution can be engineered. I just don't think the developer wants to pay. That's my particular view. I'm fairly sure that this footpath that Sarah was talking about, which is just a footpath, could be upgraded to allow cycle access. Mansfield Road is not a suitable road. The hill from where this development is down to the exit of the Greenway by the paddock is a nasty piece of road with a very narrow pavement. I'm completely cross about this, and I shall be voting against, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Kerr.
I'm also really unhappy about this, because this should have, as Mr. Thatcher said, this should have been apparent at the reserve matter stages that we weren't going to get it, and we should have challenged it at that point, and it should have been sorted out at that time. I think that there are a number of ways forward, because at the end of the day, I guess that they could go to appeal on this as well as just looking to have it enforced or not. And I think that it's likely that if it went to appeal, then it would be we would lose. So I think there are alternatives. One would be to CPO the land and get the money from them and build it, but I gather the land is outside outside Derby, so therefore we can't CPO it. We could reshape the sustainable drainage area and go through close to that, but we're being told that there's safety issues there, and I do respect that there might be safety issues there. Maybe we shouldn't. We could at least make provision up to the edge of the site to ensure that if there is development along the line of the existing path to the Greenway, that even if we can't buy and install it, that we build up to that border with a path that's wide enough for walking and cycling. And can we require them to pay us the additional money to actually form that path in some point in the future when it becomes possible? Maybe if that land is developed in a review of the Green Wedge or Green Belt or something. Or if it were to become available first, can we expect a path that actually goes sort of more due west from one of the other cul-de-sacs and form a new right-of-way to the south of the woodland? Could we condition one of those things? Are we allowed to ask for extra money to help deliver it?
I don't know whether it's you could answer that, Sarah, or Stephen Teasdale.
I'll ask Stephen as well. However, I think it is possible that we could ask the developers to upgrade the paths that they put into their site already, of which there are quite a few around the public open space areas, and some of which will link up to the existing public footpaths to make them more cycle sort of width for cyclists. It is possible that we can do that. There is scope within the development to do that, and to pass for a path that goes up to so that there's close to the boundaries of that western boundary as is feasible. So we can have to do that. I will ask to Stephen about the whether we can ask for monies for a scheme which we haven't actually got that can be delivered. I think that might be more of an issue.
Yeah, I think sorry to come back on that, Chair. Sorry, just put my video back on if I can. Yeah, I think as Sarah says, we I mean, it's a question of sort of whether it's delivering what was actually intended originally by that condition, and I suspect if it is, I mean, this you've got to realise this is a Section 73 application, and if it's linked to a change of the condition directly, then you can impose conditions that are linked to that additional change, and I think you can also justify possibly a additional sort of planning obligation, sort of to require monies, provided it's clearly linked to securing what the original condition was aimed to achieve. So potentially, yes, I think.
So,
sure.
So just to clarify that, Chair, we can require the potential exit points from the development to be, if you like, cycling ready, future-proofed for future routes beyond that site. And we can ask for an additional contribution, maybe not dedicated to that path, but for cycling improvements and cycle access improvements in that general area.
Sorry, Chair. Stephen Teasdale again. Yes, I think in terms of the first question that you've asked, Lucy, yes, in terms of we could cover that. In terms of the second, potentially we can, provided it's clearly the financial contribution is linked to the objectives under that the original condition was aimed at achieving.
Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Paul Pegg.
Yeah, excuse for that, put my video on, but if I do, I'll probably lose connection. But anyway, I'm concerned about this, and the reason I'm concerned is there's a site in Mickleover that this same contractor built. They promised to pay a certain amount of Section 106 money for a bridge and towards a cycle path as well. They've reneged on that promise, leaving the City Council to pick the bill up as and when it is completed. And now they're coming back with a similar thing in another part of the city. It's the same contractor, I believe, and they are certainly trying to pull the wool over the eyes of everybody in Derby City. It's a disgrace. I think there's about £200,000, might be wrong on that, from the Mickleover site still outstanding. It's a significant amount of money to do the bridge, and they haven't completed it. And the same is going to happen no matter what we do on the on this site, because they seem to be that type of a company, and we're not chasing them up for the money, because I've been told that we probably can't chase them up to get it put right, the Varsity Grange site bridge to link the cycle paths together. It's exactly the same company. I have no faith in whatever we do, they will comply. They will break the law to suit themselves, and we won't do anything about it. I'm certainly against it.
Thank you, Paul. Councillor McChrystal, you want to come back in again?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just to echo what Councillor Pegg has just said, I get a sense, and I get a strong sense that developers feel they can roughshod Derby City Council and agree conditions in order to secure planning, and then feel that they can renege on those conditions, and it doesn't sit well with me as an elected member. certainly doesn't sit very well with the public of Derby City, and I think it's our job as elected members to stand up for the folks of Derby City. And if we agree conditions to a planning, to a development, those conditions need to be met, and those engineered solutions need to be found, and not by our expense, but by their expense of those that seek the planning application. So that'll be the basis of my judgment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McChrystal. Whilst we sort of have to judge each application on its merit before us, I share, the concerns of Councillor Pagg and yours as well regarding what this firm may or may not have done previously. But I just want to ask, Sarah and Stephen, whether the recommendations or the changes or the conditions rather that Councillor Kerr is asking for, if they are put on there, can we sort of enforce them?
Yes, if we put conditions on, then yes, they would have to be enforceable. So we'd have to word it in such a way to make sure that it will be implemented and yes, is enforceable.
And just to allay the fears of a few of the councillors there, will we, chase them for it if they don't?
Yes, I mean, if the conditions is amended in the way that Lucy Kerr has asked for, then yes, we would make sure that they are in compliance. And I think they are very keen to get compliance with the conditions. That's why they've asked to vary these two conditions. So I think because they felt that they weren't able to discharge them in the way that they were originally intended.
Okay.
Sorry, Chair, just to come in there. I think in terms of the conditions that Lucy was suggesting, certainly we can word conditions, and I mean there would be two parts, wouldn't there? There would be one part in terms of conditions, in terms of the linkage being taken up to the boundaries to provide access. So we can word a condition accordingly. There'd be another part to the resolution in terms of securing monies towards upgrading cycle routes appropriate, sort of to compensate that. Obviously, we can't sort of that would have to be for further negotiations with the developers to determine the amount of contribution. But you could make a resolution tonight that it would be subject to Section 106 to secure such monies.
Thank you, Stephen. Lucy, did you want to come back in again?
Yes, Chair. I was just wondering what sort of figure we would think acceptable in terms of those Section 106 negotiations, because there's a lot of difference between, say, 5,000 and 50,000, and what you can do with it in terms of cycling infrastructure adjacent to that site.
Sorry, I think. Sorry to come back.
Do we need to leave that up to officers?
I think tonight you wouldn't be able to get an answer on that. That would have to be left
okay.
But they could always sort of consult with the chair and yourself if necessary, if you felt appropriate, or it could come back to committee if you want.
Yeah, I would welcome it coming back to committee if it's not felt to be sufficient.
Thank you, Stephen and Lucy. I mean, it's always unfair to try and ask officers to give us a figure when it comes to money, but because it's not something they can just pluck out of the air. But yeah, I'm sure that when they sit down and do the sums, that will come up with something. Anybody else? No. Right then, Stephen. So what are we voting on this then? To grant permission with the conditions that Councillor Kerr has asked for?
I think, Chair, yes. I think I would suggest that you may as well proceed on the basis of that, rather than just simply leave it to the recommendation as drafted. I think it would be best to include the suggested condition and also appropriate Section 106 contribution.
Okay, thank you, Rod. Just to clarify then, what we're sort of granting permission or not on with the conditions that Councillor Kerr has put on. So, Stephen, if you'd like to do the honours.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, I'll go through the committee members. Councillor Bettany, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour with Councillor Kerr's recommendations.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Bettany. Councillor Kerr, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour with the additional condition and an additional Section 106 agreement to be negotiated.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Kerr. Councillor Carr, please.
I confirm my presence. I have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour with the conditions that has been outlined by Councillor Kerr and the Section 106 agreement. In favour.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Carr. Councillor Hassel, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour with the recommended additional those things from Councillor Kerr. Yeah, sorry, brain freeze.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Hassel. And Councillor McChrystal, please.
I confirm my presence. I've listened to the presentation debate, and I vote in favour with the new conditions attached to the proposal. Thank you.
In favour, thank you, Councillor McChrystal. Councillor Nawaz, please.
I confirm my presence, listen to the debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Councillor Pearce, please.
I'll try not to have Councillor Hazel's teeth in. I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour with the extra conditions in the Section 106 as per Councillor Kerr.
In favour, thank you, Councillor Pearce. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
I confirm my presence and listen to the presentation and debate, and I vote against all motion.
Against. Thank you, Councillor Pegg. Councillor West, please.
Thanks, Stephen. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. I vote in favour of the officer's recommendation with the additional condition and Section 106 agreement as mentioned by Councillor Kerr.
In favour, thank you, Councillor West. And finally, yourself, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. Now, if we were in the chamber, I'd say, well, I'll go along with Lucy, but on this condition, I'll have to do the proper thing, which is to say I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of the application with the conditions that have been attached to it.
In favour, thank you, Chair. So that's 9 in favour and 1 against.
Thank you very much. That's granted with the conditions asked for by Councillor Kerr. And we move on now to the next application, which is Infinity Parkway, pages 13 to 113. And to tell us about this is Sarah John.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening. I'm Sarah John, Senior Planning Officer. Firstly, I have one correction to make to the report, and that is on page 90. The second line of the second paragraph should say that the road alignment has been moved to the east of the green wedge and not the west as stated. There are no further updates for members in respect of this application. The application seeks permission for a key part of the infrastructure in the South Derby Growth Zone. Planning permission is sought for a new road and associated works. Members will note that the application site crosses the city's southern boundary, and a large section of the proposed road, including the proposed new junction to the A50, stands outside the administrative area of the city. The section of road subject of the application to be determined by the committee is only the northern single carriageway section of the road of some 0.81 kilometre in length. The planning application is accompanied by an environmental statement and is supported by an extensive suite of information. The report is detailed as the environmental statement considers the environmental effects arising from the whole development and not just the section that extends through the Derby City area. The main material considerations for members to consider this evening are outlined in section 7 of the report, and the main issues relate to the design alignment and levels of the road and resulting impacts on landscape, biodiversity, amenity and the green wedge, the suitability of the proposed drainage and flood alleviation measures that form part of the application, and the implications of the proposals for the Derby Highway network. Subject to suitable detailed design along with long-term management and maintenance details, as sought through the conditions of planning permission, it is considered that the mitigation measures that are fully outlined in the report are suitable to manage the environmental effects of the development to an acceptable level, commensurate with an area of the city that is to be the subject of a significant level of growth. The National Planning Policy Framework places considerable weight on the need to support economic growth. It is considered this proposal will deliver significant economic and social benefit through the delivery of highway infrastructure required to support the strategic housing and employment land allocations in our development plan at Ragley Way and Infinity Park. Members of the committee will note that the application is supported by our regeneration and major projects team and our housing strategy colleagues. Members are advised that the County Council will be considering the southern section of the road at their Planning Control Committee meeting next week, with a recommendation being made for the connecting section of the road and the A50 junction to be approved. You will note the inclusion of a condition in the report which restricts any works from commencing before the application under consideration by the County Council has been approved. As outlined in section 8.3 of the report, the wording of conditions have only been provided in an abbreviated format, and this is to allow the detailed wording to be finalised and agreed with the County Council to ensure consistency in the approach to their wording. If any overriding issues arise through that process, the Chair and Vice Chair of the committee would be consulted to agree a way forward. The application is recommended for approval subject to the recommended conditions, and I will now hand over to Mr Gibbard, who will present to the committee information on the highway impacts of the proposal.
Mr Gibbard, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair.
Yes, we're waiting for you.
Okay, let me just get myself gathered. Thank you very much, Chair and Committee. I've got a few slides here really to explain the scheme, also to look at the impacts, and then just to highlight some of the mitigation which is going to go in as a result of some of those patterns of traffic changes that will occur as a result of it. The proposed scheme, which is shown on here, comprises of two primary elements: a new dumbbell roundabout arrangement on Deepdale Lane, with 4 new slip roads onto the A50 junction, onto the A50 trunk road, which provides all moves direct access to the A50. A link road from the new A50 junction to the northeast will ultimately connect Infinity Parkway at the iHub roundabout. And you can see on this drawing that there are a number of access roundabouts will be provided on the link road to access future development proposals. The link road will be dual carriageway for the first stretch up to the first development access roundabout, which is shown on the plan. Beyond this link road will be a single carriageway road designed at 40-mile-per-hour speed. Shared footway and cycleways will be provided along the link road between the new A50 junction and existing provisions on Infinity Parkway. Added to this, a new traffic signal control Pegasus crossing will be provided at Sinfimore Lane to facilitate safe crossing of the link road by the existing pedestrian, cycle and equestrian movements. Further, infrastructure will also be added into the first junction, the access junction, for a traffic signal control crossing here, which will be provided by the development when it comes forward. Thank you. If you could move on to slide 2, please. Before we move on to the wider impacts, I thought it would be worth showing the infrastructure proposed as part of the wider development of housing planned in South Derbyshire, which is south of Ragley Way. It's interesting because this changes the hierarchy of Ragley Way and will remove traffic from the junction of Ragley Way and Deepdale Lane, which is currently in the city area. So you can see the purple route there, which kind of makes a direct line towards the A50 junction, and then that cross route, which kind of cuts across Deepdale Lane. So in effect, Deepdale Lane to the south, which is shown in green there, will be severed. So there'll be a link road and a junction up into the area north of Ragley Way. So in effect, that will probably help control some of the traffic along Ragley Way and reduce a lot of those impacts. We can move to slide 3, please. The new junction scheme was modelled using Derby's strategic transport model. And this slide shows a difference in traffic as a result of the new junction link road. The model outputs here from the AM peak, but the PM peak is very similar in terms of traffic patterns as well. The red changes show increases in traffic and the green decreases. The modelling predicts overall improvement in delays and reduced vehicle miles on the local road network. This is a result of the new junction optimising route choices and allowing direct access to the A50 from the southwest of Derby. There are links that are predicted to increase in traffic, for example on Stenson Road south of Grampian Way, and increases here predicted to change by plus 200 vehicles in the AM peak and 330 in the PM peak. This is a consequence of local traffic from Sinfin and Littleover area that is attracted to use the new junction. There will be increase in traffic on Ragley Way, and for example, this is 270 vehicles in the AM peak and 420 in the PM peak. At Deepdale Lane, they will also see increases of around 300 vehicles in the AM peak and 500 in the PM peak. The drawing also shows that traffic is attracted from the Elveston-Allerton area via Bolton Lane, Merrill Way Junction in the peaks. T12 and the U-Link Road to the A50 junction offers a journey length decrease of around 2 kilometres from the Merrill Way Bolton Lane junction to the A50 at Deepdale Lane. So basically, rather than coming down the A514, it's far quicker and far shorter to use Merrill Way, Wilmore Road, and then the New Link Road. So those are the main increases, and as we can see, there are also some decreases. In particular, you can see that on the A514 south of Merrill Way that there's a decrease in traffic, which is shown by that green, and also on Sinfin Lane. And that's as a result of traffic that comes up from the A5132 and the areas in South Derbyshire that kind of push their way up Deepdale Lane through Sinfin and then get into the back of the Rolls-Royce area. So the new link road does have some wider benefits for local traffic. If we can move on to the next slide, please. So the issues for Derby are really the connections into Derby's highway network with this new infrastructure. In particular at Deepdale Lane, where it will connect into the new A50 junction, but also the wider impact and changes in traffic patterns as a result of changes in traffic. The applicant has put forward mitigation schemes to improve the operation of Infinity Parkway Wilmore Road, which is shown on this plan here, and Merrill Way and the A514 out by the applicant has identified some local concerns regarding potential increase associated with the new junction A50. So initially, the new junction will provide a direct connection to the A50 and will potentially be an attractive route for Sinfin traffic with origin destinations towards the A50. As such, modelling does predict an increase in traffic, 120 vehicles making this movement in the AM peak from the area north of Ragley Way. However, it also predicts a decreased northbound, and that was the green traffic, the traffic that was travelling towards the back of Rolls-Royce that was shown on the previous slide via Sinfin Lane. So if we move on to the next slide, please. These show the mitigation that's going to be put forward by the applicant. And the first one here, I apologise, you can't quite perhaps read some of that. But basically this scheme is to provide mitigation for the increase in traffic that basically travels down the A514 and then down Merrill Way towards the new junction. And you can see here that the proposals are for a right turn lane, which is basically will be formed where currently there's hatching, and then a new left turn lane on Merrill Way, which would be a new would be achieved by widening the road. Further, also north of Merrill Way on the A514, you can see that there's also an increase in the merge to the other side, which improves the efficiency of the signals, and also by staggering the crossing as well, that also improves the efficiency of the signals and provides more capacity. If we can move to the next slide, please. The other impacts that we see from the new junction and link road is that it obviously attracts traffic up from the A50 via Merrill Way and via Wilmore Road, but it also attracts traffic from T12, which currently uses Bonnie Prince Charlie junction, so they skip that and use this junction, and as a result of that, that intensifies the traffic between the iHub roundabout and this new junction, which is on T12 Wilmore Road. So as a result of that, and this is in the AM peak, queues are predicted to increase on Infinity Parkway. So the applicant has proposed this increase of 2 lanes on Infinity Parkway by about 30 metres, and that's enough to mitigate their impacts. And finally, last slide, please. As we mentioned, that the applicant has put forward a traffic calming scheme on Deepdale Lane. This is a result of consultation with the public, and basically what they're proposing is a new gateway feature at the 30-mile-per-hour sign, which is on the boundary of the city and the county, with a surface treatment and road safety message to highlight the changing speed and environment. They're also proposing a bus-friendly junction plateau at the junction of Ragley Way and Deepdale Lane, and there's a proposal to widen the road as well in the city's area to 5.5 metres, so that's consistent with the county council's network. Further, there will be a 3-metre shared pedestrian link in the city's area, and the idea of that is that there'll be something similar in the county, which they will provide as part of their mitigation. Around the Ashcroft Primary School, further measures are also proposed, which include surface treatment, footway improvements, potentially drop crossings on desire lines near the school and pedestrian accesses. That's basically it from me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andy. Sarah, you don't want to come back on anything, do you?
No, I've got no further information to present, Chair, so I'll hand it over to the members of the committee.
Thank you. Members of the committee, would anybody like to come? I believe we've got one already. Joanna West.
Thank you, Chair, but Councillor McChrystal and Kerr were before me, I think.
Oh dear.
We all got in very quickly.
In that case, then, shall we give Councillor McChrystal the chance to go first? Then?
I believe Councillor Kerr was before me, and because the biggest impact of this is clearly on Sinfin Ward, I think it'd only be fair that Councillor West can speak before me. If Councillor West is in agreement, and I'm happy to follow up and support as necessary.
Well, in that case, Councillor McChrystal is Lucy first, then Councillor Kerr.
Unless, Joanna, you want to go before me?
Actually, this is quite unprecedented. Everybody's been nice to each other. Right?
Isn't it lovely?
Would somebody like to speak?
That's very nice, Chair. I think that's
I'll
lovely.
speak, Chair. I'll speak, Chair, and I will actually turn my video on so you can see me speaking, and I will extend my thanks to my colleagues for letting me speak first. This is clearly how polite people are when we talk about the wonderful ward of Sinfin. So my main concerns for this application are not really to do with the traffic, because I think it will come from different areas of the city, and traffic around the city will move. Main concerns are for the nearby residents, and for overwhelmingly really for the protection to Sinfin Moor Park and the local nature reserve. Andy's talked about the traffic calming measures that are proposed for Deepdale Lane to the north of Ragley Way and by the school, which is fantastic because there are huge issues of speeding, cars coming down from a 60-mile-an-hour limit into a 30 residential and not paying that much attention to it. So that's really good to see, and I think that's covered. That was covered under a condition, but I've forgotten which one it is. But the park and the local nature reserve are much loved, well used. We have just said goodbye to our grazing cattle over the winter. We are having sheep arriving soon. There's a forest school takes place there, and I wouldn't want any of that to be lost. I wouldn't want any of the joy of the nature reserve and the park to be lost. So I see there's a condition 15 for an acoustic barrier, though the Friends of Sinfin Moor Park and Derby Parks have suggested that a bund or earth bank with trees to allow wildlife to pass through, minimise noise and light to the wildlife, would be more beneficial. I don't know if that's covered under condition 15 or whether we would need to specify that under condition 15. Page 28 talks of badger mortality. I hadn't thought when I started reading the report that I'd be talking of badger mortality, but I am pleased to see that there is a condition at 22, which I assume will also cover badgers. It talks about mammals. I assume that's badgers. I was also really interested to find that badger tunnels have been in place since 1976, so I'd really like to make sure that we have something in place to minimise badger mortality. So the only things that I just want confirmation that those are covered by condition. What I'm not seeing on a condition is that the cycle route that is talked about will run through and join the existing Route 66. So I'd like some clarification on that, please. I also I'm just questioning what Section 106 contribution there is, because the report seems to suggest that there isn't any. And I don't know whether that's there isn't any at all, or whether there isn't any to Derby City Council. But if not, I want to know why not. There's going to be huge sort of inconvenience and impact to the ward, and I would like to see some money coming into Derby City Council to go towards minimising disruption, inconvenience, whatever it is that we need to be able to put in place after this is built, if it's passed. So yeah, I hope relevant people have made notes of my babbling, but I'm happy to come back if I need to. But if I can get some answers on those, that would be great, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Sarah, and it might be a joint effort actually by Sarah and Andy, so one of you can start.
I'll come back on some of those issues, Chair. In terms of amenity impacts, yes, there will be impacts, and there will be change as a result of the road going in. It has to be acknowledged that we are planning to put a road through an area that currently stands as green fields, and the environmental assessment uses relevant guidance and criteria to consider the noise impacts, the visual impacts, and looking at how they impact on local residents who are closest in the Sinfin area, but also on the park and the nature reserve. So there are impacts arising, but they are considered to be within appropriate levels. And they also have to be considered in the context of this being an area of significant growth. So although it stands as open fields at the moment, that position is going to change significantly as the local plan allocated sites come forward in the future. Yes, the proposals include an acoustic barrier at the side of the northern section of the road, and that's to limit and reduce noise impacts principally on the local nature reserve. But our environmental protection team do note that that will also help to limit some noise impacts on residential properties in Sinfin also. Now, the Friends group have commented and raised the issue of whether the barrier could be changed to a bund, and we asked the applicant to provide information and look into that as an option. This is a drawing that they provided to us to show what the impact would be if the barrier was changed from a fence solution to a bund. And basically the land take is pretty significant. The bund would have to be approximately 900 metre in length and 20 to 25 metre in width, with 1 in 3 slopes. So the land take would significantly impact upon the flood alleviation areas. So it compromises the flood strategy for the proposal. And there's no option to move further east with everything, just to accommodate more land to get the bund in, because of land ownership constraints. So we're satisfied that consideration has been given to that option, but the proposal is for an acoustic screen and not a bund, so that isn't covered in the conditions. Other issues raised by Councillor West, the cycle route and the joining up of the current Route 66. There's a significant green infrastructure strategy submitted to support the application, and the proposals include for significant areas of new planting and landscaping, but also new access provision and routes and amenity spaces, recreational routes that will link into the nature reserve and Sinfin Moor Park. So those details are all to be agreed as part of the conditions of planning permission. And one of the reasons we abbreviated the conditions in the report is that lots of different statutory consultees wanted quite a lot of detail and information in those conditions in terms of the level of detail and information they want in terms of planting, access, materials, biodiversity impacts. So we want to go back towards those consultees and look at the wording of the conditions. But one of the issues we will be looking at through those conditions and that detail is looking at the linkages and routes and access through, and looking at what the how the links to that the existing cycle route can be accommodated. And in terms of badges, yes, there is a condition, I'll try and find the number, that does require additional badger surveys to be undertaken prior to any works commencing on site, and there are also tunnels proposed to allow mammals to get under the road. I think I've covered everything there, Chair. But come back to me if not.
Okay. Mr. Gibbard, did you want to add anything to it?
No, the only question from a highways perspective was the linking of the cycle network on Sinfin Moor Lane, so to Route 66, so Sarah's covered that.
Okay, thank you.
It's just then the section 106 contributions outstanding, Chair. I don't know who is able to answer that.
Sorry, I forgot to answer that part.
Yeah, I was just about to say that Sarah's answered everything comprehensively apart from section 106.
As this is an application for infrastructure, it's not for development, it wouldn't trigger requirements for section 106 payments, so there is no section 106 linked to this application.
Thank you, Sarah.
Obviously there will be potentially section 106 monies coming forward through the wider site allocations through the South Derby Growth Zone area.
Okay, thank you. I hope that's satisfactory, Joanna.
For now, thanks, Chair.
Yeah. Now then, so both the Councillor Lucy Kerr and Ross McChrystal. I mean, is everything covered, or did you want to come in now?
No, I'm happy to come in now, Councillor Khan.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's a difficult one for me. I grew up on Ragley Way, and I played in the fields opposite Ragley Way, and so obviously trying to put the emotive part of me to the side, but in the same breath, I've never liked building on fields. But I also understand just how important this development is, and I think all members of the committee need to be aware that this is probably the most significant development in Derby South that's happened since the build of the A50. Now, I remember back in the late 80s, early 90s, when the A50 was being built, and I wasn't in favour of it then. As a fairly young boy, and there's a local businessman, Brian Pierce, that said to me, well, you'll better get to McDonald's in 5 minutes. Now, it was all completely rubbish, living on Ragley Way. There was no connectivity to McDonald's at Osmiston by any means, but he was looking at the future, and I think. And the way I see this development is that it's clearly what we're going to be passing, if we are to pass it tonight, isn't just a road. We're actually passing the build on a significant amount of green space, that green wedge that sits between Sinfin and Chellaston. Now, this infrastructure clearly is going to have huge benefits to Derby City, and I'm struggling to find a reason, other than an ecological reason, not to vote with it. But I think in the same mind that even if we are to vote with it, and if I'm to vote with it this evening, it is with absolute regret, total regret, that we could be building on green space and effectively opening up this huge quadrant of Derby that's currently fields to development. And as a Chellaston ward councillor, I can certainly see the benefits in having this greater connectivity. I can certainly see the benefits as a Derby City councillor to open up Infinity Parkway to actually realise a dream of what's been planned there. But in the same breath, if I am to vote with it, then it is with significant regret. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McChrystal. I thought you was going to start off by saying, when I were a lad, it were all fields then. Right? It still is, I'm afraid. Councillor Kerr, would you like to come up?
I would, thank you. And I feel a bit like Councillor McChrystal, that this is something that we need to do, but it's also uncomfortable. And I think that puts a big onus on us to make sure that we're getting it right, because this is going to set the tone for the rest of the area. And I missed the actual point that Andy said was going to be a 40-mile-an-hour limit, because one of my concerns about this is that it's turning into an industrial estate that has some similarities to Pride Park. And I always wonder why we built Pride Park to be a 40 limit roads along most of it, when the rest of the city we are progressively dropping the speed limits from 40 or higher to 30. So why are we building those roads for that speed? Why are we building them with roundabouts rather than with junctions, potentially with traffic lights if it's needed, or traffic lights that are added later on? And the cyclists, we should really be encouraging a really good cycling and walking infrastructure here. So all the people who are going to live in these new homes and work in these new jobs that are going to appear on Infinity Park are not wanting to drive, and they will be walking and cycling, potentially catching the bus to get to work. Well, not all of them, but a higher proportion of them than would be if we don't get that design right. I'm not clear where the cycle lanes are. I'd hope that they are off-road like they are in the beginnings of Infinity Park. But roundabouts are really difficult for cyclists, and it means that you always have to stop and negotiate the side roads rather than being able to zoom through, unless you are a super speedy cyclist. And I'm not a super speedy cyclist any longer. So I want us to be sure that we've got that road sign right. I also, there are concerns within some of the representations that we need to be sure that that new green infrastructure is going to be looked after properly. And I think there's a condition there that this is still to be agreed. Derbyshire Wildlife Trust talks about having a 20-year rolling programme going forward. There's concern about who's going to fund. Really, are we creating enough good active travel facilities? Are we reducing the speed limits and not producing more 40-mile-an-hour roads? Are we designing the roads so that people don't want to drive at 40, even if it is a 30 limit? Because that's not what I'm seeing on the plans, and I think this is a full application. So what we're seeing on the plans is what we're likely to get. My feeling at the moment is that we need this, but this isn't good enough.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. Sarah, would you like to come back on anything that Councillor Kerr has said?
Yes, I can come back on a few issues, Chair. In terms of cycling and walking provision, this is proposed as effectively part one of the infrastructure to serve the South Derby Growth Zone area. And as Andy, Mr Gibbard's plans shown that there, other infrastructure will need to come forward into those two allocated sites on either side of the road at Ragley Way and Infinity Park. So future linkages will come forward, and the road has been designed to accommodate future pedestrian and cycle crossings to aid movement in the east-west direction also. The location of those links and the design and layout hasn't been formalised yet because those applications haven't yet come forward in detail. But of course, the area is allocated as Infinity Garden Village. So the pressure really is on to deliver significant green infrastructure through the development coming forward. And of course, that will include provision of sustainable transport and provision for pedestrians and cyclists. In terms of the design of the road, insofar as roundabouts and traffic lights, etc. are concerned, I don't know if Mr Gibbard might be better placed to answer that rather than me.
Andy?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't normally put in a signal junction unless there was a particular need for it. I mean, roundabouts obviously provide, the most efficient way to manage traffic so that it's free flowing. I think putting signals in and kind of almost creating that delay obviously has other implications in terms of traffic stopping, noise and pollution from doing such. I do understand what you're saying about cyclists around roundabouts, but this scheme will provide shared cycle routes along the length of it. So that should provide safe, segregated routes for cyclists that they can choose if they want to. In terms of the design speed, that comes with the type of road. It's normally determined by how traffic travels along it. So in other words, if you put it down to 30 and people don't, because there isn't major access off it, like housing, like drives, like other access points, then generally traffic's not going to travel at 30 miles an hour. And I think people like the police would question that in terms of how you control it. So the design of these roads is based on on their function and use, and this isn't really a road which goes through a residential area. Therefore, I don't think it would be appropriate to have a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit.
Thank you, Andy. Of course, we know that speed limits are have to look at it from a national point of view as well. We can't just as a city say, well, this is a rural road and we want 30 speed limit. So a lot of it has to come down to that as well.
Chair, may I come back? Because at the moment this is a road with no accesses off it, but in due course it will be it'll be a road. Some of that section will be roads with industrial accesses off. There will be junctions for other functions because they will come as the land use either side changes. But if we build the road initially for 40, it'll be very difficult for us to actually reduce the speed limits later. And it shouldn't be a 40 that people are tempted to drive for 50 along. It should be at least a 30 limit road that people are allowed to drive at 40 along at the moment. That's my view.
I don't know if we can say that actually to have a speed limit of 30 so that people can break it and go to 40 when sort of the conditions as said by were told to us by Andy is that because of the layout of the road a 40 mile is appropriate.
Chair, we design the road as suitable for 30 but allow people to drive at 40 until it gets busy on both sides. Rather than designing it for 40.
I don't see how you can enforce that, and I don't see how we can ask that from the highway people. If there's nobody else to speak on this, can we move to a vote? Would somebody
Could
like?
I just come back on one thing, Chair, please?
You can, yes.
Thank you. Just regarding the cycle route to be agreed, can we ask for that condition? Because that's a condition to be agreed. Can we ask that to come back to the Chair and Vice Chair for consideration?
Yes, would that be okay, Sarah?
Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
Right, there you go. Councillor West, we've got that on board. Now then, would somebody like to move it to a vote?
I'll move it, Chair.
Second.
I'll second it, Chair. Councillor Pearce.
Stephen, would you like to go through the process?
Thank you, Chair. Will do. Okay. First of all, Councillor Bettany, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate and I vote with a heavy heart in favour.
In favour, Councillor Bettany. Thank you. Councillor Kerr, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I sadly abstain.
Abstain, Councillor Kerr. Thank you. Councillor Carr, please.
I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour, Councillor Carr. Thank you. Councillor Hassel, please.
Teeth are back in now, thankfully, and Councillor Pearce, at least my teeth are my own. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour of officer recommendations. Thank you.
In favour, Councillor Hassel. Thank you. Councillor McChrystal, please.
Yes, thank you. I confirm my presence. I listened to the presentation debate, and I'm very sad that I need to, but I vote in favour of this application. Thank you.
In favour, Councillor McChrystal. Thank you. Councillor Nawaz, please.
Yeah, I confirm my presence and listen to the debate and presentation, and I vote in favour.
In favour, Councillor Nawaz. Thank you very much. Councillor Pearce, please.
I confirm my presence and I've listened to the presentation and debate, and I vote in favour.
In favour, Councillor Pearce. Thank you. Councillor Paul Pegg, please.
Councillor Pegg. I think
I don't. Just checking the list, Chair, to see if he's still with us. Don't think Councillor Pegg is present, Chair.
Okay, then we'll have to move on.
I'll move on. Councillor West, please.
Thanks, Stephen. I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation and debate. Wait until the very last minute to make up my mind. I have to vote in favour of the officer's recommendations, despite my misgivings on some of the issues and some of the items that we've discussed. but overall in favour because it is needed for the area.
In favour. Thank you, Councillor West. And finally yourself, Chair.
Yes, Stephen, I confirm my presence and have listened to the presentation, and I vote in favour.
In favour, Chair. Thank you. So that's 8 in favour and 1 abstention, Chair.
Thank you, Stephen. That's carried. Okay, moving on to the last item and the exciting part again of the evening is potential future site visits, and Sarah Claxton gets the best job to tell us.
Thank you, Chair. As always the highlight of the night. There's quite a number of applications on the list. Quite a few of them are variations of conditions. The first one is a site of 36 Agard Street, which is a variation to amend the internal layout and external appearance, so relatively limited changes to this apartment scheme. The second one, probably all members should be familiar with, it's the Smart Parks development, which is on the former Celanese site.
No takers.
Okay, the next one is again an amendment to an approved scheme for Roebuck Court in Amy Street, increasing the number of flats from 13 to 17 within existing layouts, so no real changes again to the external appearance.
Anybody?
Next one is sort of related to the A50 scheme we've just heard about. Land south of Watton Close and Deepdale Lane. Reserve matters for 50 houses. It's part of a wider site, which is also in South Derbyshire to the south. So.
Okay.
No, next one is Old Hall at Burton Road, the old fire station site, erection of 14 houses. Access road off Burton Road.
Chair, if people don't know the site, I think it would be useful for them to be able to go and visit. It's not somewhere you can wander into because it's gated.
Okay. No interest?
No.
So move on. Next one's a variation of condition for the anaerobic digester site at 7 Trent Water. Again, it's just amendment to the layout and the landscaping scheme. So I think it is already up and running.
Okay.
And last but by no means least, Bramble House, which came to committee a few meetings ago. They want to amend the internal layout and external appearance of the care home. Members will be familiar with that. And that's the end of the majors for tonight, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. You always get the best job, you know. I mean, Sarah John was saying, look, let me do this. And I said, no, we have to give it to Sarah Claxton, right? But we look after you. Right, with that in mind, thank you very much, everybody, and have a good night, and see you when we see each other possibly at full council.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you all.